All right, everybody. I'm officially interrupting. It is time for you to pay your attention back up here to me and my wonderful guest. We are going to get started here with your questions. And even though we are getting started, please feel free to keep sending them in. I've got a live updating text message technology right here. So as you send them in, I will keep reading them, I promise. Jasmine, first off, I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, really, this has been awesome to get to talk to you as like a human being, because I'm so used to seeing you, and it's like, oh, look, I know her so well. We're like friends, even though we've met now twice.
Yay.
But it's been awesome to have this time. So thank you very much. And truthfully, thank you for like taking time and courage to be vulnerable and to share with us the fact that you are a human being with real feelings and challenges. Because you have such a great smile, I don't feel like any of us know you face challenges. Like you don't, it's like seeing your teacher at the grocery store where you're like, whoa.
You don't sleep under your desk?
Yeah, exactly. So just thank you very much for coming here and being willing to kind of shed some of that, you know, public persona to show us.
Thank you.
First off, I want to start with this one because I think this one's great. Lynn W., I'm even going to give a name to this one. Lynn W. wanted to go out of her way to make it very clear that she loves your hair.
Thank you, Lynn.
You have beautiful hair.
I appreciate you.
All right, here is our first question. And these ones are actually quite interesting, so I can't wait to dive in. Much has been made about how reportedly mainstream newsrooms tend to be more non-religious than the general population. Has that been your experience? And if so, how do you respond in that environment?
That's a good question. Interesting. I can only speak for where I work or have worked. And I was sharing earlier before we got on stage that it's been really special, at least in my work environment, to find folks who believe the same thing as me, but just one of my coworkers I remember was going through a really hard time, and we've become great, great friends. And she sent me a text and said, "Hey, Jazz, can I go to church with you?" And she has not missed a Sunday since. She started serving, has found community. And one of the things that she said was, I didn't grow up in the church, and I grew up in a really small family and didn't get a lot of a big community. And she said, I had no idea why I came to Richmond. This was a random place for me. She's originally from Miami. And went to school in Indiana. And she says, I feel like God placed me here so I could find this community and be on this faith walk and this journey. And it's been amazing to be witness to that and to have just been the person who said, yeah, girl, come with me. See you at 10 o'clock. I might be 2 minutes late or 10. But and so we've got like a small group of girls that go to church together from the station. I just find myself in organic conversations with people. But I also feel like even people who may not believe the same thing just are really respectful and still affirm who we are and what we believe, and we can all respect each other. And I think I've been blessed to be put in that particular environment, for sure. I can't speak to other newsrooms, but I can speak to where I am.
Yeah, and this isn't part of the question, but just sounds like your presence there, whether you're intending to have it or not, the kind of natural side effect is people have someone to go to when they're in the midst of those crises, and you get to be kind of that safe space for them.
Yeah.
And you've shared that. I mean, even the vulnerability you shared earlier about sharing about your own medical stuff, I think it has to open the door. It's an invitation for others to be vulnerable with you in return.
To say, yeah, hey, will you pray for me? Absolutely. Or I've had someone say, hey, I'd like to have coffee sometime and just talk a little bit more about your relationship with Jesus. Literally, I had a coworker say that to me. Or
That's
just
kind of
your
like,
faith.
it's like the dream. That's what everyone wishes we could say.
Or they said, I just want to, talk about your faith a little bit, and I have some questions for you, and can we do this, off books? I'm like, yeah, of course. I'd love to have that conversation, but I think it's a blessing that it is able to shine in its own way and people feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, here's another one I think you'll be the perfect person to answer. What recommendations do you have for other recovering people pleasers? Is there a five-step process you can recommend?
I wish. You know what? Now I'm going to go design one. That's the Enneagram 3 of me is going to go design a program to unpeople please. I would first and foremost give yourself grace. take that negative self-talk out the window, because I used to be quick to beat myself up over the smallest things, the littlest things, but give yourself grace. And also understand that when you start to not people please, which comes with boundaries, which comes with saying no, which comes with just standing more in who you are and instead of who you think people want you to be, you're going to be really uncomfortable. Yeah. But that's okay, because on the other side of that uncomfortability is a whole lot of probably newfound confidence, but not even confidence. I think the better word to use for that is self-love. And start to just love your creation more, because you're not so focused on redoing who you are to fit a mold for someone else. Yeah.
That's really good.
But grace, just grace.
Step one, grace.
Grace.
I love that.
I'll come up with the other four.
You talked about how you're a three. Threes are like inherently people pleasers. I am also a 3, and I've been accused of people pleasing as well. And I think a lot of it comes down to this idea that when we're taught, you're raised in the church, and you're kind of taught this idea of like laying down your own life on the behalf of others, which is a beautiful thing. But you almost internalize it as, I should be miserable so
Everyone
others can
else.
be happy.
Yeah.
So you talking about this idea of like self-love, right? To love your neighbor as yourself. Loving yourself is still part of the equation.
Yeah.
I just think that is really helpful and inspiring, and I hope everybody else can also learn from that too. I mean, that is something that I'm going to walk home with for sure.
Yeah.
What would you say are some non-negotiables when it comes to taking care of both your physical and your mental health?
Ooh, non-negotiables. Well, I'm going to get even more vulnerable.
Oh, good.
I am not the best at drinking my water every day, but
there's a lot left.
I know, right? There's evidence. Somebody was getting on me before I left work today. How much water did you drink today? And I was like, not enough. So I would say that from a physical standpoint, really like hydrating. But I would also say that what is becoming a super non-negotiable for me in terms of my mental health is prayer time. But also going back to that, there's the quote that people say that prayer is when you talk to God and meditation is when you listen. So incorporating those two things into the daily walk, because that reset, at least for me, has to happen. Like I can feel in my body when, and even if I'm like in the car, I'm rushing, I'm trying to do too many things. Okay, all right, Lord, let's take a reset. 5 deep breaths. I keep making song references because I think that's kind of how I connect with God, but Breathe by Maverick City is one of my favorite songs ever, because this is why we have breath. Like, I'm breathing in oxygen. Like, take those deep breaths. Take care of yourself through that. So yeah, I would say prayer, quiet time, water, and that's me preaching to myself. Listen. And just nourish yourself however you can. I used to not eat breakfast. I had to add that to my routine. Yeah, I would say those are some of the things.
Yeah, that's good. That's very helpful. Here's one that I think is actually probably towards the mental space, so this would be helpful. I can't handle but so much news. It's just so negative.
Same.
You don't get the choice to disengage. So how do you balance never getting to turn away from all the negativity in the news?
I don't have cable. I only have Roku.
Wow, okay.
We have YouTube TV, but I check on the headlines, but you'll find with a lot of news people that a lot of us try not to watch as much when we're not at work. Like, you have to disconnect a little bit. Yeah. You can't fully, because we have a different eye. Anytime you're on social media, I'm going to notice articles. I'm going to notice things more than maybe the average person. But when my husband said, hey, I think we should cut the cord, I was like, you know what? I think that might be a good boundary for me. Yeah. There are times, and people will tell you within this, what we do, cut it off. Just like we tell the community, we'll bring on experts who will say, cut off the news, and they'll say it on the news. But sometimes you just have to disconnect from it.
Yeah.
And you will not offend me. And people always will say, oh my gosh, I see you on social media, but I don't actually watch you because I don't watch the news. Sorry. And I go, that does not offend me. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Fair enough. That's good. So being a public figure, vulnerability can be risky.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find the courage to choose to be so vulnerable?
I almost feel like God was like, go. I don't know. Did I get a choice? I don't know. I don't know if I got a choice. No, I think that one of my favorite authors, Brene Brown, talks about how vulnerability is really a superpower. And I realize there's so much disconnect between people in the community and what we do at times because there is not that bridge of seeing us as a people.
Yeah.
But I also realize that with the platform and with just being visible, I can't sit here and pretend all the time that this is every day, every moment. I mean, that's just not real. So I think it's interesting if I meet people and then they'll post, oh, I met her and she's so real. And you're like, thanks. That's a great compliment. But I think having that courage, it was more so just understanding it's kind of what I feel called to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of choosing it, I think I just feel called to it.
Yeah. God chose you for it.
Yeah. And I think that the vulnerability too is people trust me with really precious moments and stories about their life.
Yeah.
Who am I to sit here and not also be real?
Yeah.
So I also think the nature of my 12 on your side job really kind of pushed me, but I feel more than anything, I just feel really called into vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, so that's actually perfect to lead to one of the other questions here. You talked about your job and particularly the investigative side of your job. How do you decide which investigations you take on? I mean, one, are those assigned to you? Are you actually picking them? And then does your faith impact how you pick what you focus on?
I think that's a really good, whoever asked that question, that was a great question.
Great job.
I think it's hard because there are some situations where we just can't get involved, and maybe it's more so it needs to go to the legal system, or, I mean, we are just inundated. And I think that if anything, my faith calls me to help people, to serve, to be the hands and feet. And so I'm not, in a way, yes, we have to pick and choose because, I mean, you can only imagine how many emails and phone calls that we get. But I don't think it stops me necessarily. I won't say, oh, I'm not going to help this person.
Yeah.
But we try to pick from a standpoint of how can we really, really, really get results for people and really help and intervene in a situation. And then there are times where I may not be able to intervene, but I know somebody who can help them. Or sometimes we have volunteers who answer the phone and we will get an email saying that the volunteer gave them a resource. And so they called back to just say thank you because what you guided me to actually did help me.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick, but sometimes some stories are just a little more obvious than others that this is something that we can do, be a part of, and get a result for somebody.
Yeah, that's good. I always wonder how that works.
Yeah.
I watch the newsroom on HBO, so that's what I understand.
It's so accurate.
So since you started working at NBC12, has Sabrina Squire shared any advice or insider secrets with you that have been helpful?
So I got to overlap, I wouldn't say insider secrets or advice, but I would say one of the most incredible moments, and this story probably lives somewhere on the internet, but I believe it was in 2017 or 18, Sabrina got deathly ill from the flu. And it was a really scary situation. And when she was well again. Our boss, because what you'll find is, and again, getting vulnerable, moments like this are really scary for me, even though I'm like being pushed and called into doing it. You just, being on the other side, being interviewed, is weird. It just feels very weird. And our boss said, we think you should share your story because flu season at the time was really, really bad. And at first she said, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not going on TV. I'm not talking about myself. No, no, no. And then, that small bit of you could help somebody by sharing what happened to you. And my boss called me and said, and you're going to do the interview.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of my favorite pictures. And we're sitting, across from each other with the lights, and it was a 2-camera. And I got to interview her about a really vulnerable moment in her life that in turn helped other people. So if anything, I think maybe her sharing her vulnerability through that really stuck with my heart and stuck with me. And then I think it's why the story came back just now.
Yeah. Makes sense.
That was a really meaningful moment for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This one's a little bit of a detour, but I think this is actually going to be really helpful. How has your relationship with God helped you become a stepmom?
You got to stay prayed up. In a blended family, you got to stay prayed up. I think it has helped me, again, going back to that word grace.
Yeah.
And always putting love for the child above everything else. And that grace to understand that you're there to be a support person, that grace to understand that my role is to always support the relationship between the biological parents while also being there no matter what.
Yeah.
And just like constantly praying over her life. Constantly praying that God will order her steps. Constantly praying that she will remember that she is seen, known, and loved. And then just being an example through my own life as best I can. But also praying for everyone in the situation.
Yeah.
All the parents in the situation. All the grandparents in the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole lot of prayer.
Yeah. That's Jordan mentioned earlier about how many of us pray to God, but we don't necessarily spend a lot of time listening. And what you're describing, I think it's intercession, right? Like you are intercessing
constantly
on behalf of your stepdaughter, on behalf of the family members that you are kind of sharing that responsibility with. My go-to, honestly, would be, God, help me be a good step-parent. Help me figure this out. But even that added step, that intentionality of saying, and I want to pray for them.
Yeah, and show me where I can improve, or show me or talk to me when I need to just hush and not have a That's
good.
all the time. So
It's hard for threes.
It is.
We have to fix
I just want to fix everything.
All right, we got 2 more questions, then we're wrapping up. Second to last question. Would you say that your faith makes you approach journalism differently than journalists who may not share the Christian faith?
I don't know I can't speak to in terms of those who may not share the faith, but what I can speak to is it makes me approach it in the sense of this is about helping people, informing people, providing people with important information so that I'm never putting myself in front and center. Look what I did. Look at me. Good. No, and that's why I love my particular job is about being able, I think, to me, to live out the scriptures. Like, for we are the hands and feet. That's how and I've brought that up 3 times, but because I said it in my bio, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. Because that's how I approach every story. Even before, when I was running around and covering fires and other more sad major crimes, I just thought about putting the hearts of the people first instead of not about me and look what I can accomplish in this work.
Yeah, that's
not
awesome.
about
that's
that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, we have one more question, but it's kind of a fun one. So,
Okay.
real quick, I just want to say this has been incredible, and you've been amazing. Thank you so much for
Thanks for
answering these
listening.
questions, for being so honest, for being so vulnerable. Huge round of applause. And for your last question, we'll give you a softball, hopefully. What is one of your secret or like hidden talents?
Oh boy. Oh, is that who's
Anybody who is
somebody
that influencer is immediately like, sing, girl,
I don't
sing.
know if it's a secret talent.
Well, I could, lesser known. One of your favorite talents.
Well, I would say my friends will say because cooking is not my ministry, but I make really good buffalo chicken dip. So apparently that's my secret.
That is a ministry.
But my not so secret ministry, and this just came on my heart. So if you know it, sing along. But to share this with you all before we depart. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thank you.
That was perfect. I was trying so hard not to join in because I was only going to ruin the moment. Awesome. Well, Jasmine, thank you so much. You have
Thank
been
you.
one of my favorite people ever. So this has been awesome.
I
Carter,
appreciate y'all so much.
the microphone is yours.
Can we thank Jasmine one more time?